Hello, veterinary friends. Welcome to the Veterinary Life Coach Podcast. Today, I have a wonderful guest for you. His name is Dr. Mike Mossop. He is the Chief Veterinary Officer at CoVet, where he leads the in-house medical team. Drawing on a broad clinical background in emergency and general practice, he ensures that CoVet's AI-powered solutions are built with veterinary professionals and real-world usability in mind. CoVet is the AI-powered assistant built by veterinary professionals who understand the realities of life in the clinic, designed to simplify operations and reduce administrative strain, which we all need. Welcome to the podcast, Mike.
Okay, thanks, Julie. I appreciate the warm welcome, and it's good to be here. Looking
I'm
forward to this
delighted to have
conversation.
you, and I'm
Oh,
very
thank you.
interested in what you do. So this will be fun to learn.
Okay, great.
So my first question to all my guests is always to tell me their veterinary story, because I like to hear how people started and how they ended up where they are.
Yeah, sure. So I'll give you the shorter version, but basically, I was not one of those kids who thought they'd be a vet from 5 years old. I was actually going down the path of being kind of a field biologist and stuff like that. I did zoology in undergrad and still have an interest in like wildlife and all of that stuff, but decided to kind of take a more practical career path. I've also always liked talking to people and building stuff with my hands, doing things with my hands. So veterinary medicine seemed like a very good mashup of those two things. And basically, when I graduated from the Ontario Vet College 2009, when I got out of practice, I did emergency medicine for 4 or 5 years. I kind of looked at it as a little bit trial by fire, and it was a very educational experience. I learned a lot, but also learned that emergency medicine and overnight shifts were not for me. And so
Didn't like
I
those
ended
hours, huh?
yeah, exactly. And basically, I ended up transitioning to general practice in a very kind of relationship centered community practice that I really liked and I had actually known previously. I was there for 4 or 5 years, eventually became medical director. And then at some point, I kind of got burnt out. I was tired. I was staying late and writing records. When I started at the practice, it was independently owned, which was then bought by a corporation and bought by another company, bought by another company. So the two or three kind of roll ups in a row. And I don't know, I didn't see room for progression there and felt that I wanted to do something more. I wasn't sure what that was. I thought about going back to school to specialize, but through maybe some chance conversations, I kind of got the entrepreneurial bug and I decided to start my own practice. I just decided to do something that was a little bit unorthodox. So as opposed to building a regular clinic, I started a mobile practice called Treat Well Pet Care. So we would go into people's homes and do, checkups, vaccines, blood collections, problem solving right there in your living room. But we were also building a technology platform. Really, what we were trying to do was make veterinary care as easy as possible for the pet parents. So making it more accessible by going to them, having this app interface where they could order food, medication for delivery, do telemedicine, that kind of stuff. And so I learned a lot in that business. Ultimately, it didn't work out in the long run, and I'm happy to go through, why that was if you want to get into it. But as that business was closing, some of the people I knew were getting CoVet off the ground, and they were looking for a veterinarian who had experience with technology. And to me, this was just a really cool opportunity to do something new and cutting edge. And that's what I've been doing for the last couple of years, and it's been a fun ride. And I'm sure we'll get into those details.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to me that you said that you were burned out and then you were looking for more challenges, and that's how you kind of evolved into what you're doing. Because a couple of things, right? The entrepreneurship and then working at this company now. What do you think the change was that you were looking for from feeling burned out in a small animal environment and looking for like what was kind of the thought process about
Yeah.
becoming an entrepreneur?
I mean, I have to say at the time, I probably didn't know what it was. Like at the start of this process, I honestly didn't know what I was looking for. And I think one of the exercises I went through was actually just trying out a couple of things. Like, it was really nice in that as a veterinarian, like I have the flexibility to do locum work or relief work. And so I could kind of pay the bills but not have larger commitments and experiment with a bunch of stuff. And for instance, I went back to the vet college and did a couple weeks rotation with radiologists to see if that was something I'd be interested in. I've always been interested in technology, and the radiology part interests me. Now, when I actually got there and was following them day to day for a couple of weeks, I realized it was not for me. So like it was kind of by trial and error a little bit. But I think, the thing that made me realize I needed a change in some way, shape, or form was just that I couldn't picture myself doing the same job for the next 30 years. And I think, I want to be careful what I say here because I know there's people who are medical directors and are for decades and stuff like that, or associate veterinarians. And I mean, it's, there's constant variety there. And if, it's the medical cases or the communication piece or running the business that kind of energizes you, then that's great. But for me, I guess in that situation, I felt that I was working really hard. I was staying late hours every day to get through my cases. It was kind of constant onslaught, like very, very busy practice. But even though I was the medical director, I didn't have a lot of say in how the business was run. Like I didn't feel that my feedback was being put to good use. And so that was frustrating. And I also just didn't see a lot of room for progression. And, I actually did have some conversations about looking at other positions within the larger company. And I think those kinds of positions are more and more available to veterinarians these days. But at least at this point in time, there just weren't a lot of options. And so, like I said, I was frustrated and overworked and just needed a change. So,
Yeah. And being an entrepreneur is no joke. So how
yeah. Oh,
did
yeah.
you make that jump? Like, how did
Yeah.
that
And so
go?
like
Was it
I
difficult or?
I do understand that like I'm talking about being burned out and then it's kind of from, out of the frying pan into the fire a little bit because
Right.
the mobile business that I started, was probably one of the most stressful periods of my life for a lot of reasons. And basically being like a sole proprietor and having the business and all the employees rely on me was anxiety inducing. Then I had a lot of sleepless nights.
Yeah.
But I guess at the same time, I certainly wasn't bored, I guess is one thing, but it was more I could kind of pick and choose my own challenges. And the way we built the business and the website and the technology behind it and the service offering was quite different than what I had seen in regular practice. And I think because I had a little bit of the autonomy to craft and mold that, for some reason it felt different, even though I was working hard and I was stressed out. I wasn't frustrated, I guess. Like, don't get me wrong, there were frustrating aspects of it, but it
Right.
wasn't the same limitations, I guess. So
It's kind of your
that's,
own frustration, right? Like
yeah,
I have
exactly.
an entrepreneurial spirit, and a lot of veterinarians do, and that's why a lot of them are hospital owners. But I think it's a different kind of, it's almost like stress at your own choosing,
Yeah, yeah,
even though it
exactly. And
isn't.
I do believe, when people ask about like what's my calling in life or whatever, like it's tricky to say, oh, I'm passionate about this or passionate about that. It's really about finding like what are the problems that you want to work on, right? And so there's always problems, there's always going to be frustrations, but it's like
Right.
pick your poison kind of thing. And I guess I had chosen one that appealed to me more and was more challenging or energizing for whatever reason. So
Yeah. And I think that's important for people to hear is that you can do multiple things and try multiple things. And sometimes it fits and sometimes it doesn't. And there's still challenges, even if you do love what you do. I think that's one of the things that I try to impart on the people that I coach is, you need to find the right fit for you, but it's not always going to be like sunshine and rainbows, right? There's going to still be challenges.
yeah, and I mean, this is fast forwarding a little bit, but ultimately, like this business, Treatwell Pet Care that we ran for 5 years, like I really like what we built. I was extremely proud of it. The clients really loved the service, and I think it was a unique offering. But like I said, for financial reasons, it did not work out. Uh, and that was like one of the hardest decisions in my life was closing that business. Like it was a lot of sleepless nights, and it wasn't, this conversation was like ongoing over a couple of years.
Right.
Um, And so in a lot of ways, like that experience ended in failure. But at the same time, the lessons I learned there kind of have served me well in the next evolution of my career. And I couldn't foresee that at the time, but the skills and the resiliency that I built then are the only reason I kind of have the position that I do today. And I feel very thankful for that. Like things have worked out well and the universe works in mysterious ways sometimes. But yeah, it's a tough one because like you said, it wasn't certainly wasn't all sunshine and rainbows for sure. But I don't know. It was something that I felt compelled to do. So
Well, and if you ran it for 5 years, it obviously had some success
yeah, oh yeah,
because it
we had a
couldn't
lot of
stay open
success.
that long, but it also was probably a really tough decision to let it go.
Yeah, absolutely. And we did have a lot of success. I mean, we made a good amount of revenue, and like I said, the customers were all generally really liked the experience, and were very upset when we had to close the business. But just it was I was never able to scale it the way that I had originally envisioned. And ultimately, I think part of why I started down that road was that I wanted to be working on the business. Like I said, specializing in the medical side wasn't really something that ever grabbed me. So it was kind of going down the business road and the entrepreneurial path that I decided to pursue. Um, and I kind of got halfway there, but I still found I was a little bit stuck being like the main veterinarian. And I think, we did end up hiring a couple associates. We had, I think, 10 or 12 staff at one point. So that there was some growth, but we kind of hit a wall. And frankly, this was during like COVID happened around this time.
Yeah,
We
COVID
had
messed up a lot of things.
yeah, so it messed up a lot of things. The labor market was extremely tight, and we had trouble hiring people for that reason. I have three kids now, but basically two of them arrived as twins in the middle of all this. So like it was just a lot of stuff going on all at once, and um, it became too much. And my wife and I just decided that I had given it my best, and it was time to move on. And I again still think very fondly of that, and I'm proud of it. But it was time for a change, and thankfully things worked out in the end.
Yeah, so what did you learn about yourself going through that? You called it a failure, which I don't know that that's the word we always want to use, but on some level the business did fail because you decided to stop it. So what did you learn about yourself by going through that?
Um, I mean, it's a good question. I mean, I learned a lot of things. Ultimately, I don't know. Like this is maybe naive of me to think, but I kind of feel like it's gonna be okay, right? Like things could look really bad,
Sure,
and things can in fact be really bad,
right.
but it's not the end of the world, and like there is a way through, and even if that's not clear, like just keep on trucking, for lack of a better word. And I don't know, that perseverance, I guess, is something that it really helped. And aside from that, it taught me a lot about leadership and managing people, and the financial aspects of the business and marketing, and like all of that stuff, the software skills as well. So there's a lot of education, but I think, yeah, like I said, just realizing that, things change over time, and you need to kind of embrace challenges and have hard conversations. And ultimately, again, like I said, I'm optimistic that things will work out. So yeah, that was kind of my big takeaway.
Well, and that's a lot of growth that you went through just going through that situation. So sometimes just thinking of it as a growth experience is
Yeah,
kind of what you're saying in a lot of ways. Yeah,
absolutely.
I love that. So tell me about the technology side. How did you get interested in that? Because you said you had a lot of technology in the
Yeah,
home
yeah. And
business.
ultimately, like with the business, I was kind of the sole proprietor at the start, but I ended up hiring a software developer who came on as my business partner. And we were really running three businesses. Like it was a veterinary business, it was a software company, and then it was also like this delivery and fulfillment business. We were shipping out, tons of food and medication every day through our own warehouse.
Wow.
And I think, again, one of the reasons why this didn't work out long term is that I just bit off more than I could chew. I didn't realize how big some of these undertakings were
Right.
at the outset. But I guess where the interest comes from, like, I don't know, my dad worked for IBM, so we always had computers and stuff growing up from a young age. So I've always been interested in technology. And I do think there's a lot of potential, whether, with, the internet and websites or AI these days, like just a lot of power for technology to help people. And if I was in the veterinary sphere, I was obviously kind of interested in combining those two and trying to see how can the technology help within our industry. And like I said, building this all-in-one platform for our customers that managed, their in-home consultations, their telemedicine visits, their deliveries, like all that stuff, just making it easy, was a tool that I thought was really valuable. So.
Yeah. So did that help you transition into the job that you're in now at CoVet?
Yeah, there's no question, and basically through my network, like I'm one of three co-founders. The other two, one of them is named Mike as well, Mike Perron. It's kind of our chief
Mike, and
operating officer, and Yannick Blom is our CTO and CEO. And I didn't know Yannick initially, but I knew Mike through the veterinary channels, because he was involved in some other veterinary businesses. But basically, when Treatwell closed, I connected with him and just talking about next steps and that kind of stuff. And he and Yannick were kind of cooking this AI technology, and to their credit, they wanted a veterinarian on board at an early stage to make sure that they did things correctly. And basically, I just started testing the thing for them on the side. Like there was no formal business arrangement, but I had some time on my hands and I thought it was an interesting project. So we just started collaborating and we all worked well together. And, one thing led to another, and they brought me on board on a more official capacity. And things have grown from there significantly. One thing that never ceases to blow my mind is like the company was the three of us less than 2 years ago, and now we have about 80 people. So it's
wow,
really grown
that's impressive.
quickly, and yeah. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. So tell me about it. Tell me about the company. Tell me about the mission. Tell me about the whole thing because it's very interesting.
yeah, so I guess I'll start just by describing CoVet. So like
What it
CoVet
is.
is
Yeah.
an AI co-pilot for veterinarians. So we do scribing, which I think most people are familiar with, where you take an exam room recording and turn it into a structured medical record with a few clicks. But we aim to be a much more holistic co-pilot than that. Like we think that's just barely scratching the surface. And you can kind of think of us like a digital assistant that lives in your pocket and helps you out throughout your day, and really is tailored to you as an individual veterinarian, as opposed to something like the practice management software, which is kind of tailored to the clinic and tied to the clinic. So like the idea with CoVet is, if you change jobs next year, or if you're a locum and or a relief vet and you're working at 3 or 4 practices, like you put some effort and some customization into CoVet, and you know how to use it, and it follows you everywhere. You can use it in any of those circumstances, right? So it's not tied to the practice. You don't have to start over if you move on. And when I say we're building something more holistic, like we're trying to go beyond the documentation piece. So as opposed to just documenting things you're doing, like writing medical notes and summarizing records and that kind of stuff, we're kind of moving towards trying to support people's thought process. And what I mean by that is providing like clinical resources at your fingertips automatically. So, cited and sourced veterinary information that is relevant to your case, that just basically magically pops up on the screen without you having to take any action, right? So instead of having to leave the room and look something up in a textbook, it just appears. And there's other cool features we're working on, but like kind of being that more, like I said, holistic assistant, giving you reminders at the right moment, that kind of thing is really what we're focused on becoming. So.
Oh, that would be great. And so I'm guessing it's if it's for the individual, then I'm guessing that you have like an app on your phone that you take in the exam room with you, and how does it integrate with the hospital software and
Yeah, absolutely. So there is an app that you can get for your mobile phone. You can also access it on any computer. So like you can get to it through a
okay,
web browser as well.
right.
And when I'm in the clinic, I actually will sometimes use multiple devices. So like I will have a web browser open in the exam room, and I'll record the conversation between me and the client there. But then if I walk over to radiology or the lab or the doctor's office and I want to add more information to the case, I use my phone as kind of a portable recording device. And
Right.
all of that information, like even though I'm accessing it from different devices, it's all the same account, it's all the same case, everything kind of collects there. And so
Mhm.
you have all the information in one place and can manipulate it and produce records in any number of ways and emails, communication material, that kind of stuff. And to take it a step further, like I did mention you were tailored to the individual vet, and we are, but there is a team setup, right? So multiple vets in the same practice can interact and on the same case, and we actually have free support accounts. So clinics can leverage CSRs and VAs and technicians to help manage these cases, and they can do things like adding recordings and creating records and all of that. So it really is a team effort, and we're in terms of trying to become this holistic co-pilot, like a lot of it is focused on the clinical stuff that vets are doing, but we're also building tools for practice managers and stuff like that in terms of summarizing clinic meetings and, being able to help you design a standard operating protocol and things like that. So we want to support the entire profession because we realize there's a lot of important team members there. So that's kind of the basics of how it works and how you interact with it, but it's designed intentionally to be very flexible, both in terms of people, devices, customization, that kind of stuff.
Is it going to be something that veterinarians that are using it can ask the company to add services or create customized, I don't know what you
Yeah,
call it,
I
but
mean,
not a
absolutely. And
technique, you can
like we
tell,
we get a ton of user feedback, right?
request.
And
Yeah.
these could be, feature requests or people making suggestions or pointing out bugs and errors and stuff like that. And like that's extremely important, and we pay very close attention to all of that. And we have bi-weekly meetings where we kind of roundtable meetings where we try and bring a bunch of customers in. We have beta testing teams. We have a number of veterinarians on staff who also use the app in practice. So like we really want to make sure that it's working well for people in the real world. And I think some of that is kind of finding the right settings and making sure we're building features in the right way. And like I said, I give credit to my co-founders for having the vision of wanting to bring a veterinarian on, at the founding stage, at the very early stage. And I think we as a company have doubled down on that. And, we have an in-house medical team of, I think, 6 or 7 veterinarians now and expanding. Virtually everybody on the support team and the sales team is a former practice manager or veterinary technician. We have like a board of consulting specialists that we talk to as well. So there's a lot of industry knowledge that is baked into CoVet and kind of permeates everything we do and the way we design the features and things like that. And then I think just before I forget, you'd asked about how does it interact with the practice management software.
Right.
Like basically we have a number of integrations. So you kind of push a button in CoVet and that record that you drafted in CoVet just magically appears in the practice management software. We don't have that for every practice management software yet, but we're building more and more with every passing month. You can use it with any system, whether it's integrated or not. And there's basically a copy paste feature, right? So again, you draft the record in CoVet, you press one button to copy it, you move over to another window with the practice management software and you paste it in there, would be the old fashioned way, quote unquote. So
Yeah, well, that's the probably the way I've done it. So,
yeah.
because I'm old fashioned. So let me ask you, what things are you anticipating that it's going to make easier for veterinarians? I mean, obviously, some of that is intuitively obvious, but and then what's your vision? Like how much is it going to help veterinarians do their job, and what
Yeah.
exactly is it going to
So
make?
I think like it's already having a very significant impact. I think like it's hard to put a number on it necessarily, but
Yeah,
I say that there are some studies coming out that are showing that it makes a big difference. Not with CoVet specifically, sorry, I should say with like AI technology in
in
general in
general.
terms of how it
Mhm.
can reduce burnout.
Right.
But we get a lot of very heartfelt testimonials about people who really, really love what the app does for them. And basically we're saving them time and we're saving them stress. And like that is essentially our mission, right? Is to make life easier for veterinarians and ultimately to also elevate the standard of care. And I think those kind of go hand in hand, right? Like if you're burning the candle at both ends and you're running around and having trouble keeping track of things, like you're maybe not practicing your best. But if we can
Right.
slow things down and make it easier, you get to focus more on what's important. And you know, like I said, it's having a big impact, I think, partly because the pain point is very acute, right? Like in our industry has a number of issues, but I think, the burden of documentation is extremely time consuming and takes away from a lot of things. So like it's basically low hanging fruit, right? Like
Yeah.
it's
Well,
something
and it's
that,
gotten harder and harder.
yeah,
When I first started out as a veterinarian, and like I feel like I'm super old when I say that, and I guess I am, but our records didn't have to be so complete that
yeah,
they are now. Like there's just a higher demand for everything being documented and everything being perfect. And I think that's
yeah.
part of our burnout and our stress.
Absolutely. And you're right. Like that burden of documentation has definitely increased over time. And again, it's substantial. And I think like the reason CoVet and AI technology in general is being adopted very quickly by the industry is partly the magnitude of that problem and that pain, but it's also the ease of use, right? And
Right.
we can get into that a little bit, but it's really easy to get started and see a virtually immediate impact. And I think it's the combination of those two things together that have led to fast adoption, right? Like if if it was easy to use, but it didn't really move the needle for you, maybe you don't use it that much, or if it was really beneficial, but it was just super hard to use and difficult to get into, like again, people tend to drop it. And we have found a little bit that when vets are creating AI generated records, like if the record is 80 or 85% of the way there in terms of accuracy and formatting and style preferences and stuff like that, it's not enough. People will kind of dabble with it and they'll test it out, but ultimately they say, I can't be bothered to get it the rest of it. Like it's too time consuming to get it
Go
the rest
back
of
to
the
fix it.
15,
Yeah.
20% of the way.
Right.
And so I just like forget it. I'm going back to what I was doing last week and the week before and all that
Mhm.
stuff. And I don't blame them. Um, but it's shown us that I think you really have to get it to like 95 or 100% of the way there in terms of the accuracy, the style, the format, the preferences, for people to really adopt it. So again, that's where we've focused on customizability and that kind of thing, and workflows and that. But yeah, that's something that I think is becoming increasingly clear the further we get into this. So.
Yeah, I think anything you can do to help us get our records better is going to help. Do you find any do you find any problems getting the older veterinarians, the people that own the private hospitals, to buy into AI? Are you seeing any of that? Because I can see some of the old guys that I used to go to meetings with having a pushback on it. Or is everybody
Uh,
just like
I mean,
gung-ho?
it's. I'm hesitant to kind of classify by age because and the reason I say that is just
I
like,
know we don't want to be ageist.
well, it's partly
We
that,
can
but
we
like,
can all learn and grow, right?
yeah, but I guess even more than that, like, there's this kind of assumption that the younger generation are just going to adopt this automatically, and I don't think that's the case. Like
That's
you
not true.
will, there's vet students and new grads and stuff like that who are embracing this technology, but there's also a bunch I've talked to that are very uncertain and wary about it. And
Worried about it. Yeah.
like so it's not just vets who have been in practice now. With those vets who have been in practice for 20 plus years or whatever, some of them love it. Like there are people who I
I think
know
I would love it.
it's a little tricky, right? And I know vets out there have to deal with like a lot of different software, and it's, management says, hey, there's a new thing we want to try, and you're like, ah, geez, I got enough stuff on my
They
plate. But
change it every two
I,
years
I
or
think
whatever.
it's again, it's the ease of use and the value that conveys that convinces people. But
Right.
for some vets, like having again, we have this team thing. Like I know there's some where it's just the technician runs the show, right? Like they click the
Sure.
buttons. The vet just has to walk into the room and talk, and
Right.
then the button gets clicked, and they turn over and they look at the record and say, "Yeah, this is great," or they make a couple corrections and they move on. So, but I have to say, like, there's vets who have said, I was going to retire and I have delayed that decision because of CoVet. Like it's made my life
Mm.
that much easier and less stressful, and it saved me time. And it's just, I don't know, I got more years in me kind of thing. And so there are a
Right.
lot of people at towards the end of their career who I think are embracing this technology. And in general, practice owners tend to be amongst the leaders just because there are efficiency gains. And I think some of those are short-term efficiency gains, like saving time and, whether you use that time to go home early and have dinner with your family versus squeezing in some extra visits is up to you guys. But to me, I think the real value is actually longer term, like in terms of reducing burnout and reducing turnover and retaining employees and making a long career in vet med more sustainable. Like that's really where I think the return on investment comes in and can save countless dollars. So I think a lot of practice owners are embracing it kind of for that reason because they see the value there.
Is there anything that I should ask you about it that I didn't because of my ignorance?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the good questions. I mean, maybe the one question is like where it's going, and I think you kind of did ask
Yeah,
this
like what
a
you,
little bit, and maybe I didn't answer it completely, but
sure.
like,
Like what's your vision, huh, for the
yeah,
future?
well, and I think it's, you could ask this about COVID in general, or sorry, you could ask about COVID specifically or AI in general, like where are things
Right.
going in the next 5 or 10 years, and like, I don't think it's going to be a single change that will kind of change everything. Like to some extent we've undergone that. I
Right.
think what it's going to be is a bunch of cumulative small improvements that just bit by bit make things like remove friction, bit by
Mm,
bit, frictionless, I guess is what I'm looking for. So
yeah.
and what I mean by that is like, we can already generate the records, but sometimes to set up the customization, like you need to set a few features or a few settings. Um, if we can get to the stage where you just start using it and we can recognize your preferences automatically and change the settings for you, it gets that much easier. Or,
Very cool. Yeah.
with the practice management software again, we integrate with some of them, but there's only certain things that happen through the integration. And as we build more and more features, it's just like things get easier and easier and more seamless as these improvements take place and as the technology gets better and more accurate. So I think it's going to be those cumulative improvements that really move the needle, but it's not going to be one big thing. That said, like with CoVet specifically, the things in the very near term that I'm excited about, I think I mentioned this, but providing more of the clinical support. So being able to provide like medical information that is cited and sourced is a big area that we're just starting to explore. The thing that probably comes after that, we're looking at leveraging the technology to help people with their communication skills as well. So like things that are non-clinical, but I do believe, especially because a lot of my foundation was in this kind of relationship-centered neighborhood type clinic. Like I feel you could be the best vet or the best clinician in the world, and if you can't communicate your ideas effectively to the client, they're not going to take you up on things, and they're not
That's
going
a
to pursue
problem.
treatment.
Yeah.
So just the idea of using AI to help there, I think is a very powerful one. And I realize it's a potentially a touchy subject, right? Talking to people about how they're communicating. That said, like there's people on our team, again, these are veterinarians who are very cognizant of that delicacy or whatever you want to term you want to use and how touchy it can be. So I think we're going to go about this the right way. And obviously the intention is to be supportive of the industry as a whole, but more specifically like supportive of the individual veterinarian and giving them kind of a safe space where they can explore some of these things. Like sometimes, especially for new grads, like maybe you don't have the opportunity to ask a mentor certain things, or maybe you just don't want to, right? Like it's kind of these awkward things and you
Yeah,
don't want to explore it
you
with
feel
somebody
bad, like
else.
you should know something
Yeah,
sometimes.
like exactly. Yeah, you should know it, and as a result, you're kind of nervous about asking and the implications. Whereas with AI, it's just like why not, right? Again, we need to make sure we do this right, but I think we're well on that road, and that's something that I think will be pretty cool in the next year or two. So
Yeah, that's great. So I guess one of my last questions before we wrap this up would be to ask you if you have any advice for veterinarians out there that may be struggling or feeling a little bit stressed by their environment or burned out or, other than embracing this kind of technology. Do you have any advice based on your journey through vet med, what you would tell people?
Yeah, for sure. And I guess I'm always, I don't know, I'm a little reticent about this just because, I can speak to my own experience, but a lot of people are living through a bunch of different things, and to some extent, you do need to kind of find your own path. But
Your way, yeah.
um, I don't know. At least in my experience, it has been true that um, you kind of get to certain points where it's maybe worth taking a little bit of a risk and making a change, right? And I think
I love that.
um, a lot of people maybe stay in situations that are less than optimal just because they don't want to kind of explore it's scary. I guess change
It's
is
fear,
scary
yeah.
is
We're
is the
very
bottom
afraid of
line.
change,
Yeah, and I mean you could even say that with adopting AI, right? Like that's a
right?
new workflow and stuff like that. And I get why people may be a little trepidatious and stuff like that, but um, I don't know. I guess my best advice is just to try and get out there and try something, even if, maybe it's not quitting your job whole cloth the way I did, because
Sure, yeah.
there's again a lot of anxiety
Yeah, that
involved
you
with
wouldn't
that.
do
But
again.
yeah, but again, I guess to me, being able to do relief work or locum work is a really great luxury that we have as veterinarians, where you can, earn income in, whether short term or long term, and still get a little bit of flexibility or freedom to like try out different things and experiment and put yourself out there a little bit. So I think that would be the one thing I would encourage is like cautious risk taking. But again, I realize that's, you know, different for different people. And even me, when I kind of took some of my larger risks, like I had a young family, uh, if I had to do the same thing now, I would maybe not do it, right? Like
Right.
it's very dependent on a lot of circumstances. So
Yeah.
tough subject, but I think trying things out, try before you buy kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and
Is
one of the things you said earlier in the podcast is just to have some optimism and know that things will get
yeah.
better. Because
Yeah.
I
And
think
I
sometimes
do,
when you're in the pit of it, you think that nothing can change, and it will if you just hang in there.
yeah, I think if you hang in there and follow your heart to some extent and like I don't know, I guess you probably know pretty well if a situation is toxic for you. And I guess I'd just say if that's how you feel, maybe it's time to look for a change.
Time to
So
move on.
yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So tell people, if you will, where they can find out more about CoVet, and if they want to contact you, where can they find you? And then we'll wrap this up. But this
Yeah,
has
for
been
sure.
really
So,
fun.
if you would like to learn more about CoVet, just go to our website. It is co.vet,
Oh,
co.vet.
that's
So
really
nice,
easy.
nice and short.
Yeah.
And you'll find a ton of resources there. There's links to our help center where you can kind of see how-to videos and stuff like that. More importantly, you can sign up for a free trial. So, like I said, if you want to try things out, it's 2 weeks for free. And I find most people within a few appointments kind of start to get the hang of the basics. So it doesn't take long. And again, I'd encourage you to do so. And then if you do want to get in touch, just support at co.vet is kind of the best place to reach out. And you can talk to me there. There's again, a team of veterinary professionals who monitor that email address. So happy to help you, whether that is, giving you some demos. Some people kind of onboard themselves with the app, and that's great. And other people like a little bit more instruction. And so we're happy to do one-on-one meetings or group meetings. And that goes for new users or even people who are a few weeks in, maybe they've done the trial and they're like, hey, I really like this, but I feel there's more here that I'm not using. And you're welcome to book those meetings with us anytime, and we'd be happy to talk. So
That's great. Well, this has been really fun talking to you. I love listening about your journey. It sounds like you've done some interesting things, and will continue to do so at CoVet. So
yeah, well, we will try. That's for
very
sure.
nice to meet
So
you.
yeah,
Yeah.
thanks a lot, Julie. Appreciate you having me on, and it's nice to meet you too.
Yeah. Thanks for coming to the podcast today, everyone. This is Dr. Mike Mossop, and reach out to him if you have any more questions about CoVet. And I really appreciate you spending time with me today. Have a beautiful week, everyone. Bye. Bye,
Yeah,
Mike.
thanks. Bye, everyone.